Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this month's edition of the Self-Build Hour. My name is Alan Corfield. I am not Jenny Chandela, so apologies if you're tuning in to see our usual host. Jenny is currently off on holiday, so I am standing in for her today. For those who don't know me, I'm Alan Corfield. I'm Director and a Chartered Architect at AC Architects. Self-build expert. We've got a team of over 20 architects, designers, structural engineers, and everything in between. And we've worked on over 550 projects across the UK, and I'm delighted to be here today. So our Self-Build Hour is our monthly webinar that we host live, as we are doing now, and it's also recorded and edited and published within a couple of weeks after today's episode. For the guys that are joining us now live, and it's great. Thank you for joining us when you're probably on your lunch hour. You have the opportunity to write in live questions and comments during the talk that we've got today, and we'll get an opportunity at the end of today's talk to discuss those, and hopefully between myself and between our guests today answer some of those questions. So please, depending on whether you're using Teams app or Teams online, you might have the comment section or you might not have that, or the Q&A section, sorry. So put the comments or questions you've got in either comments and Q&As, and we'll try and answer them as we go through today's talk. So I am delighted to be joined today by Andy Stevens. Andy is a colleague and a friend of mine, which is nice to have on today. Andy is an award-winning builder and broadcaster. He's transferred his knowledge and experience of being on the tools into becoming a highly sought-after presenter and broadcaster across all platforms, and is also a strong advocate for mental health, and he opens up about his own struggles and how he's overcome them. Andy launched the Build Network last year in June, a global first for the construction industry, inspiring the next generation to join the great construction industry. And I'm sure he'll talk about that much today, and the challenges that we have actually in the construction industry. And as I said at the top of this, I'm delighted that Andy is a colleague of mine at Home Building and Renovating magazine and at the shows. We get to speak together and share the odd beer together when we're talking away at the weekends. So I think that's enough of an introduction for Andy. So Andy, if you're there, if you can turn on your microphone, and you should be able to share your screen.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you're all in UK time zone, if you're not, good morning. As Alan said, my name's Andy. Been on the tool since 1988, and the last sort of 10 or 12 years been working in the media. I'll explain a bit more about what I'm going to talk about as we go through, but the main thing is how do you find decent tradespeople and manage us? We'll talk about it at the end, as I'm sure in the Q&As. Alan and I were talking earlier in the week off camera that there's a big shortage of good people out there. That's the sad state of affairs, and there's many reasons why. But how do you find us and manage us? We'll go through this. Should take about 20 to 30 minutes. Obviously, please keep any questions till the end. Be more than happy to answer them. So just a little bit about me. As I say, I started back in the late 80s and basically just fell in love with it. I was labouring for a guy who built tree houses at a kids' camp, and as a very young man, it was just clear to me that that's what I wanted to do, work with my hands. So I've been doing that for a long time, but as I say, sort of more recently been stepping out into the media stuff. And that includes the construction channel called the Build Network UK, which is available across all social media platforms, mainly on YouTube. So please have a look at that. We are trying to inspire the next generation into the industry, as well as fix our ongoing problems at the moment. We film in Parliament, industry leaders, industry experts, ministers, right across the board to apprentices, etc. So well worth going and have a look. And all being well, we may be doing something with the Home Building and Renovating magazine further down the line. So let's get straight to this. Why is it important that you choose the right person for your job? First of all, it's hard-earned cash that you're spending of yours. You've got to get it right. The relationship, now I say this all the time when we do the talks at the Home Building Renovating show, the relationship starts as soon as you pick a phone up. to call us. If you sort of pick the phone up and go, right, need you at my house on Saturday, need these drawings priced, you probably won't hear from us again. We are busy. Good people are flat out. The phone doesn't stop. When it gets to the stage in your career that you've got a good reputation, a good brand, you pick and choose who you work for. So as I mentioned earlier on, there is a big shortage of good people. So if you want good people, you've got to be, I know it sounds silly, just be nice. How are you? When can you pop round? Would love to have you look at our house or property, go through these drawings, and then once we start on the right foot, it tends to continue that way. The success is down to who you use and the relationship that's ongoing throughout. There are going to be unforeseens. As good as some tradespeople are, we can't see through ceilings or under floors. Who knows what we're going to find? We've got to be realistic. And if the relationship's good, you'll be able to have that conversation with us, or we can talk to you about things that we found and different options to move it forward in the best possible manner. Now, the little blue circle at the end, extras, is a horrible word. We don't like bringing it up with you, the client, and you don't like hearing about it from us. But as I've mentioned, the likelihood is there could be unforeseens that we can't see right at the beginning of the job. So bear that in mind, and we'll look at contingency budgets a little bit later on. So how do you find us? Now, years and years ago, when I started, you put a postcard size ad in your local shop. And then if you had serious money, it was a quarter-page mono in the local paper. Now, the great thing is these days, we don't need to do that because we've got social media. That can be Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all the different platforms. However, I always say the best way of finding somebody to start with is recommendations. It could be a neighbor, it could be somebody at school one of your kids go to, it could be somebody you play sport with, could be somebody you drink with. Get a recommendation because that person is going to be very open with you from the word go. Then, not necessarily us older folk, although the youngsters certainly are, try and find them on social media. The choice I find that works well for most trades is Instagram and TikTok because the views seem to go through the roof. But if you are slightly more up the scale and you've been going longer, you might put money into a YouTube channel. You can follow us and build a relationship with us without even leaving your home by following us on social media. You can check small things. Is it a tidy site? Do the lads turn up on time? Is the skip in the right place? It's not blocking the drive all the time. All these small things you can witness without leaving the comfort of your own home. Once you've got us in the door, prepare a brief. So it could be something small like a bathroom. It could be a multi-million-pound new build. And then once you've got the quotes in, I always say 3 is a good number. 4, 5 onwards is too many. Your head will explode. Any less, you're only comparing one to the other. And I'll go through a bit later why the quotes can vary so much. When you've got the quotes in, talk to the previous customers, and the best time to go and get any advice on our work is the job we're on, but when we're not there. So it could be 6 o'clock at night when we've left, go and speak to the homeowner, and 9 times out of 10, they love showing off their property to friends or people that want to ask about their builders they're using. You'll also get a very honest opinion. Like, example, the labourer is fantastic, but he does swear a bit in front of the kids, or leave fag butts lying around the drive, or there's, food wrappers in the house. We want them tidied up. Ask as many questions as you want, and that is a great time to get the real honest opinion, but not just where we are, but of that client that we're currently working with. Because at the end of the day, I could have said that I built Big Ben. Pretty difficult to prove otherwise, but go to the house we're on when we're not there. Brilliant way of getting the most up-to-date advice. Now, this was my own social media. This is my Instagram page. From this, you can see all sorts of things. Now, most of this has been media work, but you can see that I used to work with Bosch, so there's my reviews of that. But when you go into a tradesperson's one of this, you will find all their latest work, and I'll show you that in a minute. But if you do want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Andy Stevens TV or at the Build Network UK. This is our YouTube channel. We've only been going a year. As I say, we film some brilliant videos and interviews with our studios in central London. We do events on site, and we really want to build this online presence across all platforms. So youngsters looking to get into the industry can get free advice, they can learn, but also people that are in the industry can find out the latest regulations, what's being discussed in Parliament, etc. So please do jump on that on YouTube. This is an example of the most current videos we've got, those 4 there. So anybody in construction would have heard of Mark Farmer, who's written 2 reports, one back in 2016 and one in 2024, a reflection of the industry, which would have government obviously looked at in depth. He came into the studio, funny enough, only on Monday of this week. So the first episode's out on that. And then the Construction Leadership Council held an event, and I gave an honest opinion of that, which is the last video there you can see. And then the one next to that was with Kevin Honningrake MP, who's the Secretary of State, Shadow Minister, Housing, Levelling Up and Communities. So that definitely worth a look. I'm not just saying it because obviously I'm part of it, but I do believe this is where we need to go as an industry. We need to become more digital and actually start using social media so people can learn. Now, back to finding the right people. This is a guy called Ben, who's based in Sussex in the south of England. I've been following him for a number of years. I haven't met him personally, but we've spoken. This is a good example of what you can find when you follow somebody. Now, Ben, to me, is the best landscaper in the world. What you can see in the main picture with his hand is porcelain. Now, any chippies or budding chippies amongst us will know to do that kind of joint with timbers hard enough with porcelain, it's nigh on impossible. If you look at the examples in the bottom right hand part of the slide, you can see some of the stuff he does with plaster, with porcelain, external landscaping. It's unbelievable. Now, I'm not saying Ben's going to be able to travel up to Scotland or the Midlands or the northwest, northeast, southwest of England, but you can get ideas from his work and speak to your local contractors. Following people like this really whets your appetite for the potential works that can be done with the right tradespeople. You can see alone Instagram, he's on 302,000 followers, TikTok is millions. So use people like this, get some good ideas before you go and speak to the builders you want to talk to. Now, as a more general overview builder that does the kind of bigger work, the new builds, the big extensions, pretty much stuff that we used to do. This is a guy local to me, and I wanted to use him as an example because if you look at the picture there, this is a big new build. You can see top left with a pink plasterboard, which is the fire resistant stuff ready to go over the steels. Look how clean and tidy his job is. There's no rubbish on the floor, there's no dust, everything's put away, there's no trip hazards, because obviously a lot of people do live in the properties when we're working there. Not everyone's got the budget to move out, so you need to make it clean, tidy and safe, especially with kids. So go through his pictures, you can see the work he does. Again, one thing that stands out, how clean and tidy and the professionalism of the work. Great thing, I've said it before, you can watch this in your own home. And I think when you've built up that idea, look, we really want to speak to these guys, when you do call them, see when suits to speak, because if we're up a ladder, if we're tacking a ceiling with those pink plasterboards and the phone's ringing and ringing and ringing, it can be slightly annoying. Although if there is an office, obviously use that number. Now, what you need to do is find out what we're really like when we're in your house. And I'm proud to say this next slide was one of my jobs. Now, you're probably looking at it thinking, what on earth has happened to this house? Now, let me explain. If we didn't have the communication and relationship from the beginning, you would be well within your right to come home from work and see that and go absolutely spare. However, I spent an awful lot of time with this family of 4 before the job explaining the schedule, what we were doing, when we were doing it, etc. So let me explain this. You can just about see a wall between those 2 rooms. It was the old-fashioned 1970s separate dining room to kitchen. Also, what you can't see is we've studied this off all to the rest of the house. So I'm standing in a temporary doorway, but we've used sheets of OSB and 4x2 so nobody can access this in the house. I had 2 young boys, as well as 3 dogs as well, actually. So we had to make it safe. What we did before we started taking this out was set a temporary kitchen up in their garage, which is to the right of what you're looking at. We're not going to give you the latest DeVol kitchen at 100 grand, of course not, but we can use existing. So you've got running water, sink, depending on the big fat cable, maybe get the oven through there, kettle, toaster, microwave. So you've got an area where you can prepare food, because at some stage during the kitchen extension like this, where we took the back of the house out, you are not going to have a kitchen. So you may see that and panic, but actually that's all boarded off. It's perfectly safe, and it allowed us to carry on without having to spend an hour or 2 at the end of each day getting everything clean, tidy and safe for the family. So there are reasons that the work looks like this. We cannot make an omelette without breaking eggs, but relationship, communication from the word go, and you won't have these awful surprises having come in on the school run or a day away with work. So How do you work with us? Let's pause this for a second and all focus on the image. In the middle of that image is a cup of tea. Now, that is our fuel. We live by it. It keeps us going. If we have a dry job, as we call it, we tend not to enjoy it so much. So always offer us a cuppa. Now, if you can add biscuits, cake, bacon sandwiches, the relationship goes up another level. But always say if we want a cup of tea, if it's -4 and we're outside grafting, a cup of tea honestly makes such a world of difference. So as I've mentioned, follow us on social media, whatever platforms we're on, if we're on more than one or all of them. Once you've got your quotes in and you've picked a builder, a contractor, you've gone to look at the work they're on, spoken to the homeowner, checked references, everything seems in place. This is where the work starts. Now, really, before any of the actual plant machinery turn up, you need a big pile of paperwork. First of all, no matter how big or small the job is, you need a contract. The amount of people not using them is frightening. If something goes wrong, at least both sides are covered. Now, the million-dollar question, I get asked this all the time, what contract would you recommend? There isn't one, sadly. So if it's a decent-sized job, if the contractor's not got their own contracts that they've had their lawyers draw up, go and find a local solicitor, go 50-50 to get one to protect both sides. Make sure it's in English, not Greek and Latin or legal speak. It doesn't need to be 204 pages long, just a very simple document to cover both sides in case anything breaks down. The payment schedule's key. Love to ask Alan his most common one at the end of this talk, which I'm sure we will. There's two types, in my opinion. There is the stage payments, and then there's the weekly draw. I don't use stage payments, and let me give you an example why. If we're building a big double-story extension out of beautiful London stocks, and we've got an amount of money we will collect as payment once we get up to the last course, the plate, which is where the roof goes on. We have 3 weeks of snow and we're a course or two off the top. I've got to pay all the lads and lasses out of my own pocket, plus I go without any pay for the work I've done. So what I've always done, 20% deposit, weekly draw to tie into the next bit on the talk there, the schedule of works, with a small amount held back for your snagging, which can be 2 to 3%. With the schedule of works, you see what we're doing on what week. So if we're falling behind, you're within your rights to call a meeting, say, look, you're a couple of weeks behind. We're going to hold back this week's payment until you catch up. If the relationship's there, you should never get to that stage. If there is a delay, we will come to you and say, look, there's a, and again, I'm only going to use examples. There's been a logistics and haulage strike in Spain. The tiles we're expecting aren't going to be coming for a couple of weeks. Just to give you advance warning, we will be a bit behind and we'll adjust the schedule accordingly. So work closely with us, there won't be surprises, but I believe that is the fairest way of doing it. And make sure they're clear. As I mentioned, don't have long, big words because it will just confuse everybody. Regular site meetings, get the kettle on. Let's have a chat. If you're unsure of something, it's very difficult to see. If, let's say a kitchen extension, the previous slide, you can't see what it's going to look like. It's impossible. Once the back of the house is taken out, steels are in, roof goes on, things start taking shape. So you may want to speak to us about moving socket positions. You may want 3-way lighting, not 1-way. You may want totally different layout to the kitchen. These things happen. If we've got the relationship, have the conversation moving forward, we can filter all of this through and make it work. If the kitchen turns up on Monday at 7:30 and you tell us you want a totally different design and layout because the relationship's not there, things are obviously going to cost a lot more. And I think the most important thing is just be open and honest with us. If you're concerned at anything, have a meeting, have a chat. You can probably gather us trades, do like a chinwag, and let's talk through it rather than leave it until the last minute where things can go completely south. That is the last thing we want or you want. Now, a little example of if communication isn't up to date, and I say this with a smile because it's a job that I talk about for years. It is such a good example. Communication. Now, what you can see there is a bath. Now, lovely customer, Claire, we did a bathroom for her. You can see the chap standing in the window. Well, it was a window. It was actually a solid part of the house. She didn't tell me the bath was 1/4 of a ton and also like an egg cut in half, like an Easter egg cut in half. So we could pick it up with the weight, but we couldn't turn it on its side to get it up the stairs. She panicked, burst into tears. There's a 4 grand bath sitting there. We can't get upstairs. So I said, look, we'll have a cup of tea, scratch our heads. We decided to build a frame and use a genie in which we bit steels with because of the weight, lift it up. We cut a big hole in the back of the house where you can see the guy in the white t-shirt standing, craned it in, got it in, and actually ended up putting a window there because it overlooked fields. Whereas before they had a tiny window behind that guy standing there and it just didn't do the room any justice. But that is a good example. If you don't tell us what you're ordering, it might be a bit different than what we're expecting. So when someone says bath, I don't automatically think of that monster there. So always good to have a chat. Let us know. Here we go. Money. Awful, awful thing to talk about, but we do have to talk about it. Do I ever cost any job on per square foot or square meter? No, there's too many different variations, especially in this day and age. If you go to any of the home building shows, you will see so many amazing materials and products which just develop year on year. So we tend to price it in a lot more detail. We can give you a ballpark, £2,000 to £2,500 pounds a square foot. That is roughly what you're looking at. But do you want underfloor heating or radiators? Do you want a cheap and cheerful kitchen or a high street expensive one? So many different things to look at. Do you want UPVC windows and doors, or do you want aluminium? So there's lots of things to think about. And I think costing it on a square meter, square foot basis can only be used as a ballpark, but not properly. Then you also look at your payment schedule. I mentioned the weekly draws and staged payments. Each contractor and builder have their own way of being paid. So ask what's best for them and also what's best for you. And I think the big thing, if you get prices, let's say you get three, one's through the sky, one's right down the bottom, one's in the middle. This is the reason why. If it's, let's say it's a 70 grand job and you get one job, one price, come back for the job at say 130, they don't want it or they don't need it. So they put a drink on, as we call it, hoping not to get it. If they do, they will somehow sub it out. So I wouldn't go with that. If it's rock bottom and it seems too good to be true, it is. Because one thing we've been talking about recently in Parliament is the fact that we are not licensed. So anybody watching this can wake up tomorrow, get AI to build you a website and say you've been a builder 30 years and there's no checks done. Hopefully that will be changing. But don't expect to get a stunning show home if you're paying peanuts, because more than likely there's an expression we use, you'll get smashed up on the extras. So we get halfway through, oh, we're not having price fit in the kitchen. That's another X thousand. Oh, you want a floor laid? Didn't include that. So this goes back to the detailed paperwork with the contract and schedule of work. So bear in mind, when you do want good people, it isn't cheap. But my apologies, there's somebody at the door, which will hopefully go away. So let me just go on to this as an example here. This was an example of the kitchen extension that I mentioned earlier, where we took the back of the house out, where that wall was dropped between the dining room and the kitchen. This is how it turned out. As you can see, a little bit better than when everything was in a mess. Typical kitchen extension these days, open plan, bifolds across the back. You've got the kitchen area. There's a dining area behind that plant on the right and a TV area there as well. So very stereotypical. That was underfloor heating. The reason why, if you look in this sort of build here, there's nowhere to put radiators. It's cheaper to run, and I prefer it because it does free up a lot of wall space and it's a better heat as well. Now, onto the word communication. This was a bathroom, which we did a number of years ago, big Victorian detached house. It was actually a bedroom we turned into two bathrooms, so two en suites. The only problem was the communication was decided by the client who lived in Hong Kong to go through an interior designer. Because she wasn't experienced, budget got out of control. This ended up costing 87 grand, which for two bathrooms and a bit of work on the central heating system obviously wasn't great. So just a bit of a heads up, things can spiral. To give you an reason why, you probably see in this picture here, the right-hand side wallpaper that cost a fortune a roll. Wallpaper and bathrooms do not go together, kept peeling off. The unit on the left-hand side with the flowers on top was from Neptune, the high street shop, which obviously is expensive. That didn't fit, so we had to go and get it recut to shape, new stone worktop templated. Keep a close relationship with the contractor or the project manager, otherwise costs can spiral. And again, that job there really should have only cost about 20 odd grand, but it just went out of hands because the person in charge didn't know what they were doing. So The communication, I always say as well, about both of you, the family, the people that live there. This was a great example where we had a gentleman, the dad of the house. He worked away a lot in finance, and the mum with 3 kids busy with the school run after school clubs. Anyway, as you can see from this, again, another kitchen extension we did, everything was very grey. Worktop, dark grey base units, wall colour, wall units, even the light fittings at the top. So she said, I want to add colour. She came back with this. If you can see the orange splashback, that was glass, which again, made to measure, very expensive. She then added an internal orange to the lights above the breakfast bar and the stalls. Now, when he came back from his trip on the Friday, he went mad because he said it was far too bright and he likes to drink on a Friday. Coming down the stairs on Saturday morning with a hangover, didn't want to be greeted with that. But it was too late. To take that all out would have cost thousands. So it's not just communication between us, the builder, and you guys. It's between the two of you as well. Because once something's been put in, it's generally a lot of money to take out. If you are struggling with budget, have a go yourself. This was a little house that I made for my kids from an apple tree and an old fence. Simple as that. If it doesn't work, you take it down and burn it or pay someone to come and do it. But as you can see on the front, these are just feather edge boards for the door and the roof that I used off an old fence and then just stained them. And then the old apple tree that fell down, I used that as the balcony and cut little slithers about 1 inch thick to clad the front with there. It's a very easy thing to do. There's so many videos online to teach you how to do it. And I'll tell you, the best thing doesn't just save money. It's such a great feeling when you look back and think, I've done that myself. So just in summary, before we go into the questions, do your research, jump online, go and look at the jobs that we're on when we're not there. Speak to the customers, get them to be very open, not just about the quality of workmanship, but also what we're like to have in the house, because we can be there a long time. Longest we were on a kitchen extension is 11 months because it was quite a big one. And if you look at that, we want to be getting on with you as much as you want to get on with us. When you've looked at it, go and get the references in, get your paperwork together, and then start the communications. Sometimes these days WhatsApp groups can work, but some people don't like it because they need into the evenings. Regular site meetings, perhaps on a Monday morning, 7:30 before you guys go to work, whatever works for both sides. Build the relationship, because the best thing is when we leave, we want smiles from you guys because we have created something which should change how you live. And also, if you then further down the line, move house, want the garden landscaping, new bathroom, you make a quick call to us and we come and see you. You don't have to go through all this again. So that is pretty much it. Alan, I think there's probably a few things that we're going to discuss, but obviously any questions as well, more than happy to answer them.
Excellent. Well, no, thanks for that. Did you manage to get rid of the person at the door?
It's my landscaper. I told him not to come today because I'm on calls, and he just keeps ringing.
Communication.
Exactly. And this is, do you know what, Alan? You've hit the nail on the head. The communication, to me, out of all points we go through on builds, is the most important. Yeah. You know, if for example, if I was running a bank or something and I'm on a video call and the door's permanently going with an annoying trade, it's going to really annoy you. Yeah. So yeah, communication is so important. And these days there isn't an excuse with mobile phones and everything. So yeah, good example. Well said, Alan.
I know. And I think it is. I mean, it comes across in our projects from day one as well. You need to establish your communication channels, the cadence, the amount of it, how you're going to do it, and it's the number one thing where relationships fall down. And
there isn't a reason for the relationship to fall down if communication's in place. It's as simple as that. It's only tends to fall down when there's no communication. Things aren't said that need to be said. It builds up, and then it's too late. So communication's key, and it was a very good live demo of how things should work.
So well done for organising that. That was really good.
You're welcome. I'll sort him out a drink later.
So just a couple of questions, and there's a couple from me, and then there's a couple from that have people have added in. We are going to be talking for probably another 10-15 minutes in terms of questions. So if anybody's got a question, please put it in the Q&A or put it in the chat functionality if you don't have the Q&A on there. So please do that. That'd be really useful. And you ended up, one of the last slides was the little tree house. What jobs can actually, if we're thinking of a self-builder, whether it's an extension or a new build house, what jobs do you think people should be comfortable with taking on?
This is a brilliant question, and things have changed so much. First of all, legally, you can do anything as long as it's signed off by building control. But I wouldn't advise putting steels in, etc. The misconception is if I help out labouring, I save a fortune. Obviously, bear in mind, labourers are paid the least generally on site. And labouring, I think, is one of the toughest trades. The decent labourer keeps that job running. Moving a bit of gear around, it will save a bit. But also, just for example, if you think, right, we've got 11 pallets of bricks that have turned up, pallets of blocks, bulk bags of soft sand, cement, all of that out the front, ready for your rear extension. I'll bump it round. You need to know where they go, otherwise the bricklayer's not going to be happy. So we have spot boards with bricks and blocks placed out to run the line to make sure it's done quickly as possible rather than moving for every time you need to lay something. So they're the bits which I wouldn't recommend. Plus, it's proper backbreaking if you haven't done it before, you're not used to it. The bits to do yourself, listen, a lot of people will give decorating a go. If it's new, as in fresh plaster, you can probably do it yourself. If it's an existing property that needs a lot of making good, filling, plastering, fine filler, whatever you need to use. But again, give it a go. The worst thing you can do is need to get a quick skim over the top. These days, more people are trying all sorts. Tiling is something people have started to try and teach themselves. I would say one bit of advice before you try any sort of work, if it's tiling, carpentry, even plastering, it's all about setting out. Tiling really, if you've got the right equipment, isn't difficult. But if you don't set out right, your grout lines are going to run out. Your cuts are going to be a nightmare. It will look awful. And once you put a tile on the wall and it's gone off, depending if it's rapid set or normal set adhesive, if it's wrong, it's going in the skip and it's going to cost. So I would say work out what you're comfortable with. It may be laying a laminate floor or an engineered floor. You may be absolutely fine with, again, getting it set out. Once you started, the rest of it looks after itself. But be careful that it's something that you can reuse, like tile adhesive, or if you're using glue on a wooden floor, they're going to go in the skip and it's going to cost. But be realistic as well. I don't know if anybody's seen this, but there's a guy, Stirling Way, I think, up in Scotland. I don't know what he does for a living. He's only a young guy, and he's blown up on social media. Basically, he's just a young lad, and he's building his own garden with ChatGPT, and he highlights every day all the stuff he does, the mistakes, the errors, what he researches. He's actually the funniest guy you'll ever see. He's only been going, I think, 3 or 4 months. He's got 600,000 followers on Instagram, and he's brilliant. And he's just open and honest, but also it gives you an honest opinion of what can go wrong. It was about to pour the concrete for the slab to put his home office on, and one of the viewers said, "You realise you've got nothing to stop all the concrete falling out the bottom of your wooden support." So again, listen, give it a go, but be realistic with what you can achieve.
Back to ChatGPT and ask about shuttering and
honestly,
pouring concrete.
It's so worth watching. I love the guy. I think he just makes me giggle.
That's it. And I think we've got clients that do a lot of different things, everything from, if it's a simple electric install, pulling cables from one room to one room, obviously not doing the difficult bit, but there's lots of different things that I think people, certainly our bigger self-build clients, can do. My only thing to that is just be mindful, if you're a director of a company, and you're on a significant salary, you taking a sabbatical or some time off to do a very low skilled or low paid job might be counterproductive. But there's that sweat equity, right? There's that fun and that element of, well, I've put time and effort into this. So
I think whatever you're doing, communicate with the builder what you want to do. As you mentioned there, pulling cables, my Spark, he's semi-retired, Nick, now. I would always help speed the job up, especially if you've got a massive kitchen extension, you've got holes everywhere through your 8x2 ceiling joists. If you pulled it through and it wasn't completely flat, so it was a bit crimped or tight, he went mad. Whereas some other Sparks are happy with that. So again, just be open with the builder, because some of us are funny little people at times. No,
well, exactly. And I think that's, again, it goes back to that communication, and it also leads on to contracts as well, which is quite a good segue of we are, a lot of our clients, we use the JCT suite of contracts, the joint contract tribunal, which are ones that are far more written in layman's terms. There are obviously still enough legal in there for it to hold up in court. But I think the point that you made, that there has to be some form of contract. But also don't be surprised if you don't use something that is set in between client and contractor, that anybody that's coming to you with their contract is most likely going to be better weighted towards them. And that's only natural. So don't go into something and then be surprised that maybe the T's and C's are weighted heavier in their terms than your terms. So
I'm gobsmacked the amount of lads I know that are still starting six-figure jobs without contracts.
Yeah.
Listen, I think the hardest thing, and I'm sure people on here are going to be familiar with this, no matter what you do, but when we start our trade, if it's an apprenticeship, if you learn off the old boys on site, if it's through a college, 92% of all tradespeople will be self-employed at some stage. Now, some people like me love it. Some people want the stability of sick and holiday pay and pension. One thing we're not taught is how to run a business. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, still to this day, there's bits you're like, oh my God, how do I do this? So when you start out, you do wing it. That's being blunt and honest. So things like contracts, payment schedules, schedule of works, we may not be amazing at it, but we've not been taught to do it. I personally believe that should be in your apprenticeship. But yeah, if you're not sure, just ask the question, look, that contract doesn't seem great. Do you mind if we look at another one? Go for it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that goes back to getting what you paid for. You might have a really good young tradesperson, but you would then expect that if they've not got the admin, or they've not got that legal background, or the loads of projects behind them, that you might get them a better rate while they're starting out on their journey. But you then also have to be mindful that it will not come with, they might not have a QS, and they might not have a full-time project manager and procurement manager and health and safety and all these other things. And as you said, the busy builders will be busy during the day, and they'll be working at night to try and do their invoices, and working at the weekend to plan what they're doing the next time. So you've got to be mindful of all these different things when you're going to that small, good local builder. Again,
being honest, and I think it's best to be this way. There's a big shortage, I mentioned, of decent people, and because of that, even when you've got your own team, there is something called the Monday Club in construction, and it could be the labourer, it could be your roofer, it could be anybody. It's best we're honest with you. If someone's not in, there's no point in blagging it and saying, oh, it's stuck in traffic. But there can be delays because there's so much demand for some people, they'll get offered a better job. It's unlikely, but it does happen. So I think, as Alan says, if you've got a relatively new company and if they've got the right people to guarantee that schedule stuck to religiously, you haven't got, Tony the Chippy going, actually, I'm doing a kitchen elsewhere next week. I'll see you the following week. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that we find in self-build, where people are maybe getting favours, or they're getting the guy to do something as a homer. Don't be surprised if he doesn't turn up, but also make sure there's enough flex in your schedule that actually you're not then delaying the next person on, so that you can say, well, actually, he's not turned up this weekend. I know he's going to be here next weekend. What does that do to my schedule this week? Especially if you're an unskilled self-build project manager, that you've got to rely on these things and things to move about. And the other thing on that, which is really relevant, is about payments. If you're not paying on time, don't be surprised if that person doesn't prioritize you over the person that is.
The biggest reason companies, and we've got sadly record number of insolvencies in construction, the main reason for that is getting knocked, as we call it, not getting paid. I think the big thing is, and it happened to me, I've been very open about it, it got into six figures because I wasn't good at the confrontation, which is obviously another part of it. But it was absolutely frightening that you can get to the end of a decent job, leave someone with a stunning award-winning house, and they go, I'll pay you the last bit. It works both ways. We've got to feed our families, we've got to pay our lads and lasses on time, we've got suppliers, skip companies, building inspector, whoever it is. So just be really, you wouldn't walk into Tesco's and bugger off paying only half your weekly shop. So I think contractors need to be the same.
Yeah, and again, I think if the communication's right, the payment schedule's right, and it's fully aware, we often act as contract administrator on projects where there's somebody impartial that's saying, well, Mr. Builder said I've done this amount of work, goes to the client, we check it and go, well, actually, yeah, it has all been done. You need to pay it. And these are, I think these are things that become really clear when there's amendments, there's variations, there's change, that they need to be documented properly. And your builder should become your friend. But when you're walking around saying, can I have that? Can I have that? And he's saying, yeah, of course you can. Don't be surprised at the end of the month when you get a bill for those variations.
This is the big thing where the relationships also break down, is when stuff is asked for, of course we'll do it. It's your property, your home. Yeah. But remember, there may be, more than likely, a cost. And I think the great thing is, in this day and age, there's so many softwares and apps where you can share stuff instantly. But as you say, Alan, if you ask for an extra 4 downlighters, don't expect it to be for free.
Yeah, exactly. It's certainly not a charity. On that, have you had much dealings with working with, or would you prefer a bill of quantities to come in along with a set of drawings to price something to make it more accurate? Or what's your thoughts on quantity surveyors providing, or should the builder be able to quote it accurately for if the drawings are there?
If you can't quote accurately off a decent set of drawings, structural calcs, building regs drawings, you shouldn't be doing the job. Is my opinion. I think the difficulty is, we know people like Tim, brilliant QSs. There's obviously external companies that price for you. The key thing for me is, because we have customers say, "Oh, we'll buy our own materials." And you're like, brilliant, but A, you're going to pay more than us. B, you're in charge if the delivery's not there. So I think it's a bit Wild West saloon getting prices from merchants. So I can go in and, I've got my year-on-year price for, aggregates to insulation, to timber, to plasterboard. Yeah, halfway through the job, they can go, look, you're on this big job. We've got an offer on 8x4 half-inch square edge plasterboard. Well, why didn't you tell me that at the beginning? Because you knew that I was going to be needing 60 sheets or whatever it is. So I think working out exactly what we charge is difficult. We know what labour rates are, but material prices, we can be on pretty good terms if we've known someone 30 years rather than setting out where we're just walking in and they don't know us from Adam. So it's a bit of a difficult area. Who knows who's paying for what?
Yeah, and what's your thoughts on where prices are going at the moment? We've obviously had the big increases from after COVID, from the impact of the Russian war. Where are we at the moment? Have prices leveled out in terms of materials?
Some have. So timber, what I call carcassing, 4x2, 6x2, 8x3s, whatever you're using, they've kind of come back down a little bit above pre-COVID. But if you take inflation and whatnot year on year, it's about right. Some materials I think are disgusting, and it's pure profiteering. Insulation, steel, glass, paint. The prices went up, they've not really come down. I was in the paint company I use, and they were just like, it's almost embarrassing saying this is what it costs, because people did expect it to come down post-COVID, but some areas haven't. And when you look at the company's financial results, you see why they've not come down. But I think, like anything, shop around. Listen, you may be able to get it better than us. But again, have that conversation. You might have somebody that you play sport with, or somebody, a friend of yours that works for a floor installers. They might be able to get you floor cheaper. But there's always offers. But if something's too good to be true, quick example: engineered flooring. If it's dirt cheap, that's because the veneer is about the size, thickness of a piece of paper. So if you put a heel through it, there's a stone in your trainer and scuff it. If you've got a decent engineered oak or mahogany or teak, whatever flooring, make sure the veneer's thick. So if you do scratch it, you're not going to go back to the chipboard or ply underneath.
Yeah, no, I agreed on that. One thing, when do you want to get involved, or when do you think a local builder, so somebody's doing an extension, side return, single story, when should the builder get involved? Early on, planning stage, when they've got a set of built regs drawings and calcs, or what would be your advice? Because we always try and get people in early to be able to have the conversations with that right builder.
My view is, as soon as you wake up and think you want work doing, because you might have in your head from watching TV or social media, right, this is what we want to do. If we're there and you say, look, I'll give you a rough ballpark for something this size is going to cost X. You might go, whoa, we haven't even got half that. So by then, if you've got sets of drawings and structural calcs and all this worked out, you can't use it because you can't afford it. I think it's good. And also, if we're involved early, we can say, look, we've done one of these literally 2 roads down or in the next town or so. You can go and have a look and go, whoa, that's way too big for us. There's only 2 of us. So I would say get us in as early as possible. I feel that relationships start well. The time we walk in the door, we know each other really well. It helps.
Yeah. So a question that's come in from Richard: how do you deal contractually with health and safety requirements?
That is a brilliant question. Never been asked that. So we're ultimately responsible for the health and safety on our site. Funnily enough, it's not a plug, but on our YouTube channel, one of the first videos we did was with a health and safety company, because, again, being brutally honest, we should be running reports on every job we do. Most don't, because they think, oh, it's going to save 1,200 quid. At the end of the day, if something happens, it's down to us. So we need the right insurance, make sure we've got the public liability and employer's liability, but also there should be an element of health and safety, which is usually picked up in the CDM. But I would ask each contractor, because far too many of us do not do it. And again, possibly moving forward, Alan, people start asking for these things before work starts.
And I think from our point of view, the CDM 2015 Act has been around now for a significant amount of time. So the HSE don't accept, well, I've not done it, or I presumed somebody else was going to do it. So we on all our clients take over the principal designer role. So our client has a duty to appoint a principal designer for the design phase, to plan, manage, monitor the risk in our design for the construction and the use of the building and the taking down of the building. And then the client has the duty to appoint a principal contractor. So that can always be difficult when you're not appointing a main contractor. When you're self-managing or appointing individual trades, you need to make sure that you have somebody nominated as a principal contractor. Don't expect anybody to do it for free. Don't expect them to. It needs to be appointed in writing as well. So, and I think that's something really important.
Yeah, the big thing on that, if you are self-managing, you got to know what you're managing. It's a lot more than just a few bricks and blocks and timbers turning up, sticking it together. There's so much more in the background. And as you say, the CDM regs kind of cover most of that off. But, insurances, what's your relationship with building control? Are you using local authority or a private company? Who's in charge of that? There's a lot more to it than just, calling a few lads and lasses to come in and build.
Yeah, and the insurances that Andy mentioned, in that, if you're self-managing, i.e. becoming the main contractor and appointing trades, you need the employer's liability, you need the safety insurance. So make sure in any work that you're doing to your existing house, notify your insurers, because it's no longer a house, it's a building site. So you've got potential risk of fire, safe break-ins, everything else, these other fun things that might happen on a building site. So another question that's come in, and I'm not read it out verbatim, but it's somebody is building with a factory engineered straw insulated panel. Andy, you can give me your opinion on that. They are going to try and get to passive houses for a barn conversion, but the crux of the question is that they have been demoralized by delays. Their builder has said they were starting in spring. They've delayed it until August. They're already living in a caravan, lots of costs. Is there a way to ensure that the contractor doesn't delay us again and commits to a start date?
Well, first of all, I'm really sorry to hear that. Secondly, you're sadly not the only ones going through this. It's kind of back to what we said at the beginning, that good people are in short supply, but there's no excuse to delay by months and months and months. I would call a meeting at a convenient time for both sides and say, look, this is the situation we're in. We've been pushed back several months. Is this going to happen again? You can see we're living in a caravan. When you leave that meeting, I'll put it in writing. And I would get to the stage, because this can't go on forever. And if you've been delayed once, it may happen again. I would put it in writing that you have until X date to start the work, with a sort of cooling off period of a week or two if there's bad weather, for example. If there isn't a digger in the ground, or if there aren't men and women on site, we reserve the right to cancel the contract and find someone else. It's not what you want to do because you've got to start all over again, but you don't want to be living in a caravan with the promises being made and nobody turning up. To delay a little bit does happen. Deliveries not turning up, bad weather, etc. But
yeah,
I'm sorry.
I mean, I think on that, I think calling the meeting and understanding actually, do they want this job? Is it the right thing for them? And I think given the block that you're using, and they're trying to strive for the ENERFIT passive house standard for retrofit conversions, I think it's probably quite specialist. So it might be that they're not, the people that are contracted to it aren't up to it, or they're that specialist that they are really, really busy. But I think if you put in place used a JCT contract or a standard form of agreement, it will have a start date, it will have penalties, it will have everything else set out that everybody needs to agree to. And I think communicating, I think that having that meeting and going through things just to understand actually, do they want this and is it the right thing?
The only thing I'd add to that is, have you paid a deposit, a holding deposit, or a contractual deposit? So when we started to get absolutely snowed and be booking way in advance, we would ask for a small percentage of a holding deposit. Now, some people say, oh, you can't do that, but actually it protects both sides. So we're not going to suddenly disappear the day before we're going to start, and vice versa. You can't say 2 weeks before we're due to start next year, we found somebody else. So I think it would be worth double checking what you paid in terms of either a holding deposit or a contract deposit, because that will obviously have leeway as well. And as I nearly called you Jenny. Sorry, Alan. I keep looking at the name on the screen.
Definitely not Jenny.
No, but I would have a meeting urgently and saying, look, if what Alan says is correct, they might be a little bit out their depth, trying to get the right people to come in, advise, or actually do the work for them or with them. And obviously they're in short supply. So just have a meeting ASAP, because this could go on indefinitely. It might be fixable over a cup of tea and a 10-minute chat.
Okay, we'll finish up on a couple of quick ones. The future of trade, right? The young workforce. If the guys and girls are coming in, finishing uni, school, whatever it might be, what trades should they be looking at, and where do you see the industry going in the next 5-10 years? Obviously, we've had modern methods of construction coming in, stuff becoming factory based. We've got AI, we've got lots of other things. What are you seeing, and what would your advice be to anybody who wants to get into the trade?
Anybody that's thinking, male or female, looking at getting in, get in now, because you are going to do exceptionally well. We've got a massive aging workforce. We've got such a huge number of trades retiring in the next 10 years. It's going to leave a big shortage. At the moment, after the first year of apprenticeships, we lose 50%. So there's not enough people coming in. Have we got a brand image problem? Yes, we have. But I think that's being addressed from what I've heard. Things such as renewables, the money being thrown at that, obviously up in your neck of the woods, Alan, but also in Wales and the southwest. If you set a renewables company up, get the right people in, get the training, there's so many grants being thrown out by government at the moment. 10, 15 years, you won't know what to do with the money you make. I still believe do a proper apprenticeship, city and guilds, bring it back if I had a choice, but get a trade under your belt, because the great thing is you'll always have work. Secondly, you do your own place. And thirdly, if you get to any age and want to go and work overseas, even as far away as Australia, New Zealand, or Europe, North America, you've got that skill set. And what we're seeing is there's so many people going to university, but not for a degree that's going to give them anything, such as, let's say, medicine or law. If you go and study a sort of fairly innocuous degree, come out with 70 grand debt, you could have spent those 3 years doing an apprenticeship. So listen, it's a brilliant industry. Yes, it's got its downsides, but as in every industry, get in now, learn. And I tell you what, you won't look back.
And finally, why aren't contractors regulated?
That is down to government. If you look at pretty much the majority of Europe, certainly Scandinavia, Germany, Austria, because they're regulated, Australasia, North America, everywhere apart from Britain. If you're regulated, you're looked at on a different level. So we do have a class problem in Britain. When I lived and worked out in Australia, I noticed the difference. In Germany, tradespeople are looked at socially at the same level as accountants, solicitors, doctors, because they go through the proper training and regulation and licensing to get into our work. We aren't regulated, which is what are we now? 10th of July 2025. It's an absolute embarrassment. I know that various groups and bodies have been pushing Parliament for the last 20 odd years. There is movement. From what I've heard, potentially in the next 3 years, there could be something. But then we go back to, how do you train people like me that can't do exams, but I work with my hands? We, a bit like building control, we lost 50%, 48% of building control officers with a sort of re-qualification, if you like. So why are we not there? Ask the government, because we should be. There's no way I should be able to walk into your house, stick it on acros, kick the back out if I worked in a coffee shop for 30 years.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, Andy, well, thank you so much for that time. Just some top takeaways, and I think some of them will be pretty evident. Start the project properly, get your brief, get testimonials, go and speak to people. Again, this doesn't just go for builders. Speak to anybody. Speak to their people that they're working with, go and find out, check the work that they're working on currently, have a contract, whatever that contract might be, whether it's a JCT or a contract written by you or by the builder. Communication is massively key, right? We must communicate properly from day one. Payment schedules, we need to stick to them. We need to make sure we're paying our workforce. And if there are issues, we need to communicate that properly and withhold payments in the right terms and in line with any contractual agreements that you've had. There's good builders, there's bad builders, there's good architects, there's bad architects, but there's also good and bad clients. So be the best client, the best customer that you can be.
One thing I didn't say, Alan, was
on,
just to finish with, which I think is a brilliant thing to take into account. As you probably gathered, most of us trades are fairly straightforward, simple people. If we're on a job for a long period of time and come down in the morning, offer us a cup of tea, how was your weekend, get to know us. Yeah. If that relationship grows, when we get to that awful word extras at the end, if it's little bits, so I don't know, rather than using existing skirtings, we'll buy new ones, or we're now doing some of the decorating on the woodwork because you couldn't do it. Whatever it is, if it's small bits, I promise you we'll just waive it. Yeah. If the relationship's soured or not developed and grown and we're not close, you will be billed for every single penny that we contractually can bill you for. But the amount of jobs we've got to the end, had a brilliant relationship. We had one job, honestly, a great way to finish. Funny enough, that big bath, we did the downstairs extension for them. It took forever. Big thing. We played football in it before we fitted it out. That's how big it was. The last day, she came upstairs and said, right, everybody, can you come downstairs? And we're like, oh my God, what's happened? We blocked a cat up under the floor. We've had a few of them. And she cooked us a breakfast. Yeah, nice, and it was banging. Yeah. Then she said, there's a few extras. And I looked at it. It was a few £100. Yeah. And I went, I'll be honest with you, you've been an absolute pleasure to work for. You, your husband, the kids have been brilliant. Forget it. Now, if there had been an absolute pain, there would have been an invoice sitting there. But also off the back of that, they're delighted, we're delighted. And little Timmy comes around for a play day. Oh, who did your kitchen extension? Bosh. Suddenly we got another 2 years worth of work. So it works both ways, but the relationship's brilliant. We love turning up to work. Big grin. How's your weekends? You know, one of the kids is hanging from the ceiling and the other one's lost at the end of the garden. Whatever it is, let us be part of it, because it just makes everything so much more fun. And you should enjoy each day that we're there, because we're building your dream home. Exactly. Great way to finish on that. Great. Thanks for that, Andy. So as discussed at the start, we will prepare this, the recording. It'll be out on our website in a couple of weeks' time. If you're wanting to see us in person, myself and Andy will actually be appearing together at the Home Building and Renovating Show in London, 19th to 21st of September. We've got an event at the National Self-Building Renovation Centre in Swindon, 10th and 11th of October, where you'll be able to see Jenny and Pearl will be exhibiting at that. I mentioned at the start of this that we are taking a break for over the summer. We have another TV builder doing our next self-build hour on the 11th of September. We've got Mark Miller from DIY SOS talking about everything DIY that you can and can't do on your project. So a really nice follow-up actually from this conversation. Thank you so much to everybody who has joined us today, and good luck with your projects. Thank you.